Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. The 2024 Summer Olympics in Paris start today, and for the next 3 weeks, we will see historical achievements across 32 sports, from gymnastics to swimming to equestrian, archery, volleyball, track and field, skateboarding too, and I kid you not, and I freaking love this, breaking, or more commonly known as breakdancing. Breakdancing is now an Olympic sport. I don't know about you, but if you guys were on the Step Up movie trend, I tried breakdancing after Step Up 3D came out because that's my favorite one. And breakdancing was it's really cool, but the fact that it's an Olympic sport is I love it. And I also found out recently that my mother did breakdancing, and I cannot tell you how weird of a feeling that is to know that your own mother did breakdancing. She had like the cardboard box and everything apparently. Yeah, so breakdancing is an Olympic sport now. This Olympics will be the first year breakdancing is in the Olympics. You best know I'm going to be watching that. Right along with horses and gymnastics. Yes! Since it's Olympic season, it is only correct that I talk about women in the Olympics. Women have had a tough, long road getting into the Olympics, much less the amount of sports we are allowed to compete in. With this in mind, let's talk about the first woman to ever compete in the Olympics, Helen de Pourtalès. Let's get started. Olympic season, and I have all the flags on my arms too. This would be a sick tattoo. That'd be a pretty cool tattoo. That'd be cool. Olympics. Helen Barbie was born on April 28, 1868 in New York City, New York. She was the second oldest of 6 kids to mother Mary Lowellard Barbie and father Henry Isaac Barbie. I love that their last name is Barbie. I just need to get that out of the way. Now we can continue. Her parents are very significant here. Mary was the daughter of Pierre Lowellard III, grandson to Perry Abraham Lowellard, who was the founder of the massive Lowellard Tobacco Company, which is part of modern-day R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company. They marketed cigarettes under the brands of True, Kent, Old Gold, Newport, and Maverick. So she is from tobacco money. And because of that, she was a very prominent member of New York society during the Gilded Age. Her father, on the other hand, was a director and financier of the Buffalo, Rochester, and Pittsburgh Railway, and it was massive. It lasted for almost 50 years, which is a heck of a lot longer than most railroads. So he comes from railroad money. Henry was also the grandson of Charles Oliver Island, who was an American banker and yachtsman and was a captain of a racing yacht team that won the America's Cup, a sailing competition, and is the oldest international competition still going today. They won this competition 3 times. Helen's childhood was filled with dinners, balls, clothes, and handsome top hat men. The family spent their summers in Bellevue, Switzerland, near Lake Geneva, where she would spend her days on yachts. Yes, please. Since she spent many summers on the water, it's no wonder that boats became an interest for her. Throughout her young life, Helen became more and more interested in boating. It also helped that boating was the #1 thing that people at parties she went to would talk about. But unlike the more likable steamer boats, Helen liked sailing boats. Now, since she liked boats, the man she might marry needed to have a passion for sailing as well. And luckily, she would find her knight in clean sailor's clothes. Her knight in sailor's clothes. I tried. Count Hermann Alexandre de Pourtalès, a Swiss captain of the cuirassiers of the Guard, which was a cavalry regiment part of the Royal Persian Army, and he too liked sailing, so they were perfect for each other. They married on April 25th, 1891, when Helen was 23, thusly becoming Countess Hélène de Pourtalès. The couple spent their days at their home at the Château de Clenez, sailing in regattas or boat races on Lake Geneva and around the Cannes, which is a city along the French Riviera, where they owned a villa. That almost rhymed. Helen had dual citizenship between Switzerland and the US, so during the off-season in Switzerland, she would be in New York during the winter and would train in Newport. I'm not training sailing in Newport. Too flipping cold. On top of having a passion for sailing, Helen also had a passion for horses. Her grandfather Pierre was the first American horse owner to win the British Derby in 1881 with his horse Iroquois. By 1894, it was revealed that the 1900 Olympic Games would be hosted by Paris. Now, this was a very unique time in Olympics history. Now, we know the Olympics have a long history and was founded by the ancient Greeks beginning in the 8th century BC to the 4th century AD. Specifically, the last ancient games were in 385 AD because in 393 AD, the games were officially banned by Roman Emperor Theodosius I. He banned them because he thought the games were equal to pagan festivals and wanted to promote Christianity. Because the Roman Christian movement was like really, really big at this time. And mind you, his thought that it's equal to pagan festivals isn't that far off because they did used to do them naked. So he's not that far off. 1,500 years later, His Excellency Demetrius Vakelas, along with His Excellency Pierre de Coubertin, also known as the father of the modern-day Olympics, together founded the International Olympic Committee, or IOC, in 1894. Now, Pierre wanted the first modern Olympic Games to be held in Paris. He wanted them there as part of the 1900 World's Fair, which would be held in Paris. But the committee didn't want to wait 6 years. Plus, why the heck would you want the first Olympic Games after 1,500 years be held in Paris? Do it where it was created, Greece. Duh. So being outvoted, the first modern Olympic Games were held 2 years later in April of 1896. It was officially called the Games of the First Olympiad, held in Athens, Greece. Out of 241 athletes, none were women. And can I just say, finding the old footage of the first Olympic Games, these vaulting, the pole, the freaking, where they go over the pole on top of two poles, isn't that the most wiener thing you've ever seen in your life? 4 years later, Paris would hold the second ever Olympic Games in 1900, officially called the Games of the Second Olympiad. As I said, these games were held as part of the 1900 World's Fair. Paris was hoping that by having these games as part of the 1900 Paris Exposition, it would give the games more awareness. And interestingly, because I like to do my deep dives, the 1900, 1904, and 1908 games were all in conjacent to World's Fairs. And because of this, the games lasted over 5 months. Because the World's Fairs were over 5 months long. I don't know how you can have a fair in 5 months. I guess it's because it's the World's Fair, the whole world comes in and it was old. You know what? I actually just figured that out myself. Never mind. Anyway. And it wasn't until after the disastrous 1904 St. Louis Olympics. I mean, like, seriously, it is rated as, like, the worst Olympic Games in history. Please look it up. It is amazing. Take 10 minutes during a break and just look up 1904 St. Louis Olympics. You will pee your pants. It's so bad. And the stupid long 1908 London Olympics, and I say stupid long for a reason. It lasted 187 days, or 6 months and 4 days. That makes it the longest Olympic Games in history. That by the 1912 Stockholm Olympics, that it A, thank God, shrank down to 2 weeks, and B, became its own main event. Mind you, it also didn't help that the 1908 Olympics had to scramble to relocate the games after Mount Vesuvius went. So, Yeah, that didn't help. Can't exactly have the Olympic Games when there's lava coming into the stadium. Let's not have that. The 1900 Paris Summer Olympics was the first modern Olympics to have female athletes. Out of the 1,226 athletes that competed in 19 sports, 22 women competed in 5 sports: croquet, golf, tennis, equestrianism, I hate that word, and sailing. Now this is where Olympic Pierre, because I realize that we have 2 Pierres here, Olympic Pierre gets knocked down a few pegs because he didn't like women competing in the Olympics. Quote, "As to the admission of women to the games, I remain strongly against it. It was against my will that they were admitted to a growing number of competitions. An Olympiad with females would be impractical, uninteresting, unaesthetic, and improper." End quote. Moving on. And thought that competing in the games would be harmful to women's health. He's just looking out for women's health in golfing. Because, golfing is a stressful sport for women's health. Like, when you put it like that, it's stupid. I'm laughing so hard at the stupidity, my scarf is coming loose. In celebration of having women in the Olympics, they advertised posters with female athletes. Now, when you look at this picture, the poster has a woman in fencing gear, even though women were not allowed to do fencing. So that's weird. Now, I have no idea why they did this. However, I have my own theory. Perhaps they had heard of a certain Julie Daubigny, who was a very famous redheaded female fencing and opera singer in Paris. And if you want to learn about her, go watch the video. I'll put it as a card wherever it is up here. I mean, when you look at the poster and you look at Julie, shoot. It's just a cool, fun thought that I had there. All right, we're moving on. Oh, and by the way, side note, since the Olympics were part of the World's Fair, this, of course, made the games basically a sideshow. So much so that athletes didn't even know they were competing in the freaking Olympics. And medals weren't even given out. They were basically given small participation trophies. Can you imagine that? A, nobody knew that they were competing in the freaking Olympics. And B, they weren't even giving out medals or rosettes or roses. They were giving out participation like tiny trophies. Wow. Helen and Herman both registered to compete in the games in 1900 under the Switzerland flag, and both were accepted, thus making Helen one of the first 22 females to compete in the Olympic Games. Boom. They registered with their Lake Geneva 20-foot-long sailboat named Lagna. That's the Swiss name for it. The race was on May 20th in Moulin, an expanse of water maintained by the Paris Yacht Club. The competing boats needed to weigh less than 10 tons and had to compete in a kind of preliminary race to be allowed to race in their respective categories in the preceding days. 65 yachts had to cover just under 7 miles of water. On the first day, there was a light breeze. This helped the sails to sail, I don't know sailing terms. So really the race came down to technical skill, and Helen and Herman would compete together. They were very skilled in this type of sailing from their time on Lake Geneva and were able to easily qualify. They were given the starting number 22 in the 1 to 2 ton class. 2 days later, the just under 12-mile course was a very challenging and technical course that needed very technical skills to complete it. And I say that because I've watched a couple of sailing videos doing this research. Holy gosh! Whoa! The couple's skill proved golden. And on May 22nd, 1900, Helen and Herman won the gold medal in the first 1 to 2 ton race. And a few days later, they won silver in the second 1-2 ton race. When the games ended, 167 days later, Helen, alongside 2 other women, were the first women to win gold in Olympic history. or Olympic herstory, I should say. Boom! This win, of course, brought Helen insane fame in the sports world and in the Geneva aristocracy. However, throughout the rest of the world, Helen got very little attention, mostly because a lot of people shared Olympic Pierre's views, and because of that, Helen faded into obscurity. They went back to their home in Geneva together, had 3 daughters. Her stepson, Guy de Pourtalès, liked water sports and competed in a few, but later became an author. The couple lived together in their home till 1904, when Herman died on November 28th, 1904 at the age of 57, leaving behind a $7 million legacy. When Herman died, Helen spent her final years dividing her time between Geneva and Paris. Countess Hélène de Pourtalès died on November 2nd, 1945 in Geneva, Switzerland at the age of 77. Helen's fame never went farther than the 1900 Paris Olympics. Very few journalists and commentators even mentioned that she was one of the first to pave the way for literally thousands of women to compete in future Olympic Games, let alone mention her gold medal, the first gold medal. Though her life is not very well known and she's not mentioned in pop culture, Helen is a massive pioneer in female athletes and, of course, the Olympics. Her story is short but nonetheless important, especially in the modern day Olympic Games. Now, before I leave you, let me give you a few more awesome facts about the Olympics today. It was not until the 2012 London Olympics, when women's boxing was added, that women finally competed in every single sport the Games had. And of the 11,215 athletes competing in the 2024 Paris Olympics, 5,712 are men and 5,503 are women, making these games an almost perfect 50-50 gender split. And lastly, as we know, Paris is hosting the Olympics this year. This is only the second time in history. The 1900 Paris Olympics that we just talked about, that was the first and until now, the only time Paris ever hosted the Olympic Games. So as you cheer on your favorite athletes, watch your favorite sports, and rejoice in the gold medals for the next 2 weeks, as you watch the Games, realize that the Olympics have returned to their second ever home for only the second time. And lastly, of the 330 athletes competing in sailing, 165 of them are women, and they have Helen to thank for paving, or should I say, sailing the path for them. There you go. Short, sweet. I needed something short and sweet. About the first woman to win an Olympic gold medal. For the next 2 weeks, I have 2 more videos coming out. And when I say that Helen is the first one, I mean timeline-wise, she is the first one. You'll have to find out what I mean by that for next week. If you learned something today, and I sure hope you did, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. And while you're down there, please leave a friendly comment. I will be back next week for another video on the Olympics. But until then, don't be well behaved. You just might make herstory. See you next time, guys. Enjoy the opening ceremony.
Coming at you like real, real wild. Here to light it up, set the world